On this channel, we really love looking at retro software, gaming, and even operating systems. There's just something really charming about looking back at these old pieces of software and reminiscing on how much better some of these things were than what we have today. But as time goes on, even newer software that we're used to today slowly becomes, well, retro. And one operating system that we are all very familiar with is about to get that label, and that is Windows 10. Because on October 14th of 2025, Windows 10 will be sent into its end-of-life phase. Pretty much meaning that it's not getting updates anymore. Now you might say, well, wait, nostalgic. I'm still using Windows 10, and according to Microsoft, I might not even be able to upgrade to Windows 11. Well, you're in luck. Maybe. Because in this video, we're going to look over some of the options that you have as that October 14th date draws closer. So if you're here because you're currently on Windows 10, or you're just interested in these topics like I am, go ahead and stay tuned as we go over what you should do as Windows 10 enters its end-of-life phase. So the first thing I hear a lot of people that still use Windows 10 ask is, why can't I just keep using Windows 10? I mean, hey, it'll still run on my computer and I like it, and it's better than Windows 11. And while you are right that it will still run after it's into support, that doesn't mean that you should. You see, those updates that you get every few months normally contain a large amount of security patches. Also some unneeded spyware from Microsoft, but mainly security patches. And if you don't want your information stolen or have crippling malware, it's definitely best to stay up to date on those. You see, that's why I say whenever we look back at like older versions of Windows like XP or Vista or 7, that you probably shouldn't try to ever connect those to the internet. Like take XP for example, its security features are like 20 years out of date. And I say that because even when Windows XP was still getting updates, it was still behind Vista and 7 security wise, like way behind. And nowadays Vista 7 and even 8 aren't getting those updates, and now they have major security flaws of their own. And it's only a matter of time until Windows 10 develops these issues itself. Now there will be some level of extended support for Windows 10 in terms of mainly just security updates, but that'll be hidden behind a paywall. And this is mainly intended for large businesses or schools or government entities that have systems that would be really hard to update all at once. This gives those entities time to go ahead and update their software to something else. And actually, reading here from the Microsoft website, extended security updates for organizations and businesses on Windows 10 can be purchased today through the Microsoft Volume licensing program at $61 per device for 1 year. The price doubles every consecutive year for a maximum of 3 years. ESU is available at no additional cost for Windows 10 virtual machines in the following services. And it lists a few different services I guess you could just have running in a virtual machine. And it also has something down here for regular consumers. For individuals or Windows 10 home customers, extended security updates for Windows 10 will be available for purchase at $30 for 1 year. So if you want to pay $30 for an extra year of Windows 10, I guess you can do that. But in my recommendation, I would just go ahead and try something else. Now, the easiest thing that you can probably do is just biting the bullet and going to Windows 11. It's the latest and most secure version of Windows, and there's no real worry about them dropping support for it anytime soon. Now, yes, I do know how much I have said I don't like Windows 11. And while yes, what I say about it being overbloated and having really scummy and borderline spyware features, it's much better to just be a lot safer on Windows 11 than having all of your data stolen on Windows 10. That, and it's really not too much of a learning curve to jump between the two. I mean, yeah, there are some UI differences, but all in all, it really does kind of feel like Windows 10. Just you might have a little weaker performance because, well, all of the bloat. Now there are tools that allow you to debloat Windows 11 installations and installation images, but we'll look more into that in a different video. Now you might be hearing all of this and just saying, well, hey, nostalgic, my computer says it can't even run Windows 11. And yes, that is actually a real issue. Because in Microsoft's push for quote-unquote security, they've come up with insane and just downright fake system requirements for Windows 11. And it's not really like you can get around these requirements either, because the Windows 11 installation literally looks for these requirements before it even lets you install Windows 11. Heck, I even made a video last year about how to get around those requirements, but since then, Microsoft has even patched those, to the point that some people even brick their computers trying to do it. So I really don't recommend you to try that. And if you're interested to hear what the system requirements are, it requires at least a dual-core processor with at least 1 GHz or faster, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 GB of storage, a UEFI secure boot motherboard, a TPM 2.0 chip, which is the wild requirement, a DirectX 12 or later graphics card with a WDDM 2.0 driver, and at least a 720p display. Now, there's some other requirements for Copilot, but we're not really going to get into that. Pretty much if your computer misses out on only one of these requirements, you just simply cannot run Windows 11. I know there's already several videos out there that cover this topic, but one of these days I want to actually make a video running Windows 11 on Windows XP era hardware, just to prove that the system requirements for Windows 11 are completely fake. But to stay on topic here, if your computer can't run Windows 11, well, you have a few other options. Well, the first thing is you could try to find a way around the system requirements, but I really don't recommend doing that. You also could try upgrading your PC. If your motherboard supports a CPU with a TPM chip in it, also considering if the rest of your PC can support Windows 11, then that might be a viable option. But if you really need to stick with Windows and go to Windows 11, my recommendation is that you're just going to have to bite the bullet and buy or just build a new PC. And that is understandably very unreasonable these days, especially with the prices of computer components like really high right now. Building or just buying a pre-built PC is going to be pretty expensive. But like mentioned earlier, if you have to go with Windows 11, this might be really your only choice. I decided to go on Newegg and make a parts list of some compatible Windows 11 parts that should allow you to run Windows 11 for the time being with the room for upgrades in the future. Now, you might be seeing older parts like AM4 and DDR4 on there, but the whole point of this project is to get you on Windows 11 for as little as possible, while also not having a computer that is not upgradable and is completely garbage. Now, I'm a self-admitted AMD fan, but I'm sure there is also good Intel options out there you could choose from as well. And 9 times out of 10, by the time this video gets uploaded, these probably won't even be the best deals at the time, so I definitely would still look around. But if you're not into building your own computers or really don't know how, you could also look into the pre-built market. And believe it or not, you can actually find some pretty good PCs on the pre-built market for pretty cheap. But like when you're building a computer, it just really depends on what you're after. You can find some pretty good office PCs for under $500, but if you're planning on gaming on them, they might need to be upgraded if they can be upgraded. But if you use your computer for work purposes, that would be a perfect option for you. But what if you're like, hey, nostalgic, I really don't want to build another computer or buy another one. Is there anything I can actually do with my computer that can't support Windows 11? Well, yeah, there is, but this is probably the most complicated route, and that is switching to Linux. Now, I know this is probably going to be the most controversial part of the video, and the part of the video that's probably going to result in the most angry comments. Not really because of Linux itself, but what I might say about Linux. Now, I'm just going to be upfront and honest here. I'm not an expert Linux user. I've tried to use it in the past. I mean, it's a really good operating system, but it takes a lot to get used to. That and having to deal with all of the compatibility stuff and having to find video editors and software that'll work with it is just way more tedious than using Windows and dealing with the dumb stuff you have to deal with on it. But if you're willing to completely learn a new operating system, Linux is an amazing choice. It's a completely free operating system to get into, it's completely open source, and it's becoming a lot easier to use Windows applications on it through compatibility layers. And the best thing about it is, it'll run on pretty much anything. So you don't have to worry about dumb system requirements that pretty much forces you to buy a brand new PC. One of the only difficult parts about getting started with Linux, well, is finding out what distribution you want to use, because there are literally thousands of distributions of Linux, and they all have a wide range of difficulty levels. Some distributions of Linux have their own unique UIs, some look identical to Windows, and others are literally just a command terminal. So I'm going to go ahead and look over a few different distributions of Linux that you should check out so you don't pick the wrong one. So first and foremost, if you want to get into Linux, the best way to do it is just to go ahead and get Linux Mint. Pretty much because out of all of the current distributions of Linux that I know of right now, Linux Mint is probably the closest distribution to Windows that you can find. And if you have no idea how to use the Linux command terminal like myself, that is a really good thing because you really almost never have to use it in Linux Mint, unless you want to start doing more advanced things with Linux. And that's the good thing about even more simple versions like Linux Mint. And that's because even though it's designed for a more user-friendly experience, that doesn't mean it's any less capable than other versions of Linux. Because at their core, they're essentially the same. They're not really the the same, but they are pretty close. But like I said, I'm not really a Linux expert. I just kind of dabble with it every now and then. So don't take my word on how Linux works. I'm just presenting you guys a different option. Now, besides Linux Mint, there are a couple more options that would be pretty good. Ubuntu is another one that's pretty popular to switch to from Windows, mainly because its UI is pretty similar. Another one that I've heard people use a lot is Fedora Linux, which I actually did use this for a little bit. So if you don't want to use Linux Mint, this is actually a pretty good option to go to. I think it is a little bit harder to get into though, but that could just be me not knowing what I'm doing. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much all I have for this video. And if you watched this video and didn't really like the options that I presented, or simply can't move from Windows 10 for one reason or another, I would say you probably could get away with using it for a short amount of time. But inevitably, you're going to have to switch from it eventually, whether that be from software not supporting it anymore, security reasons, or other reasons. And heck, knowing how this channel is, we're probably going to explore Windows 10 eventually, probably years down the road. But as it gets older, we're going to start feeling more nostalgia for it, and I'll probably end up building a PC with it on there. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I want to say a special thanks to my channel members on screen here. They are a massive help to the channel. And if you would like to become a channel member yourself, please hit that join button down below. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.